But the advice that came up from the very well-meaning individuals who were in the category of maybe mainstream Republican, and they would come up and say, Ron, we really like you. We like what you're doing, and we like what you're saying. But if you would only do one thing, if you would change one thing, boy, you would really have a lot more success. You need to change your foreign policy. And of course, if I didn't have the policies that I do have, I don't believe we would be here tonight. And this is something they obviously do not understand. Those who do understand it fear it, because of the powerful special interest behind a foreign policy of intervention in the military-industrial complex. So it's complex, but they strongly resent this. But it was mentioned already today, I have mentioned it before, but I think it's the best test of my support coming from, more so than anybody else, from the military for our foreign policy. The subject of monetary policy, of course, comes up frequently in Washington on our committee, but off and on over quite a few years. And the question has always been, what are we going to do with the penny? You know, they want to change it to steel, but they can't even afford the steel. If you have a steel penny instead, we're off the gold, off the silver, we're off the copper standard, now we're on the zinc standard, we can't afford a zinc penny, so now they want to make it out of steel, but the steel, by the time you pay for labor, it costs more than a penny to make a steel penny. So there was an article, a headline came out the other day and said, can we save the penny? And I got to thinking, well, they don't understand monetary policy or they wouldn't be talking that way. The bigger question that we will be forced to face is, can we save the dollar? Passed not too long ago, and as you could guess, I voted to guess it, and that's that Dodd-Frank bill. Did you ever hear of that monster? In that bill, they gave more power to the Federal Reserve. They created a board, a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, protect all the consumers. So they were given a task here a couple months ago, and it was designed to make things more efficient. That's why this story will tell you why efficiency is not the answer to our problems. We don't want more efficient government. We want to get the government out of the business that they're not supposed to be doing. This new Consumer Financial Protection Board was given the task of simplifying the applications for a mortgage loan because it's complex, and now they're more complex because they had a bubble and they don't know where the bubble came from because it was probably because they didn't fill out enough forms. So they said, what we need to do is simplify these forms. So they went to work, and indeed, they came up with the solution. They provided the solution. It was 1,000 pages long on how to reduce 2 forms to 1 form. All these new regulations placed on everybody who applies for a bill, and they think that will be the solution. But that isn't the solution. The solution is get the government out of our lives and off our back and out of our lives. We are serious, and when we have the clout, what we do is we don't tinker around with 1,000 pages to simplify things. What we do is we repeal Dodd-Frank is what we do. there was another time the Republicans, when they were in charge, they passed the Sarbanes-Oxley. This cost businessmen $1 trillion with new regulation. But that was when the conservatives were in charge. So when we're getting rid of Dodd-Frank, we get rid of Sarbanes-Oxley as well. Convinced that we're living at a time that an era is ending, and this is significant because you can be depressed at times when you look at what's happening in Washington. You work hard, you come close to victories, you don't have real victories. It goes on and on. You said this is too overwhelming, and Washington is responding too slowly. But the end of an era provides an opportunity, and I'm thinking recently about what era are we talking about? And I would say first off, in the last 100 years approximately, what about 1913? That was a beginning of an era. That was a beginning of a time where they said, you know, with the income tax and the new foreign policy, we're going to make the world safe for democracy, and we're going to have a war to end all wars, and we're going to have a Federal Reserve that's going to get rid of the business cycle, on and on. We were going to introduce this wonderful era. Well, guess what? That era is not with us anymore. It's over and done with. You're just looking at the last vestiges of a bad program started in 1913. We will eventually get rid of the Federal Reserve. Same time, something else was started, and that was the domination or the oncoming of communism, 1917. The Bolsheviks taking over, and communism was a panacea. It was all done with good intentions to take care of the people. All those wonderful promises. Well, communism lasted 74 years. It dissipated between 1989 and 1991. People don't talk too much about communism anymore. At the same time, communism brought about, it's hard to count when it gets up into the hundreds of millions. It is estimated that possibly 200 million people died by people who were able to put bad ideas out on the table and look at the tragedy of what happened. That era is over and done with. We are not going to see the world go back to that type of a program again. One of the books that impressed me when I was still in medical school was Dr. Zhivago. And I remember one line in there when Laura was talking to Zhivago, and things were very, very bad during the revolution. And she says to Zhivago, "What a terrible time to be alive." And she was absolutely right, anticipating just what was coming. And I think things are different now. I don't think we should be as depressed. We have more knowledge now than ever before. We also had the 1930s, a continuation of the progressive era. We had the Keynesian economic policies take over, the New Deal policies taken over, the fascism of Hitler and Mussolini. And they contributed to another 25 million people to die, just the fascism of Europe. So the 1930s didn't do as well either. And then that, of course, when you have bad economic policy, when you get involved in a war to end wars, it's only a war to begin more wars, and you end up in another world war, we end up, again, another World War II, and then after World War II, we have this internationalism come in. We have the development of the United Nations, the IMF, but they set up, of course, they were working toward worldwide currency, so they set up this Bretton Woods agreement on money. which was a total farce. The good economist, the Austrian economist at that time said, it can't work, it won't work. And indeed, when it fell apart, it was a very, very impressive day for me, because like it is tonight, a Sunday evening, it was on a Sunday evening, August 15th, 1971, the Bretton Woods monetary system collapsed. But that was predictable, and that's over with. And there are some, there's no doubt, we'd like to go back to that, but it also gives us the wonderful opportunity to advance forward. In more recent history, we have had the advancement of these failed policy. The project for a new American century. That is, you already know there are a bunch of neocons running that show. They actually opened up an office in 1997. They closed their office in 2006. That doesn't mean they're gone. That doesn't mean they're not influencing most of the politicians in Washington, but believe me, they're losing steam. Right now, the wars that have been fought in these 10 last years, it's given us $4 trillion worth of debt, are unpopular, we can't afford them, the American people want us out, and they want to bring the troops home. Shouts, and if they don't listen to common sense, they're going to listen to the facts of life, and the facts of life is we can't afford it anymore. The Soviets didn't leave because they had an enlightenment, they left because they were broke, and they so foolishly got bogged down in Afghanistan. So why don't we wise up and just take care of ourselves and defend our country and not be the most of the world? Conditions that have been developing for the past 100 years, and now we're in the midst of a change, providing an opportunity for a revolution towards liberty. This has provided some very serious problems for us. It will not be smooth sailing, but there's reason to be optimistic that we can have great achievement. But to me, the three problems that we have to face. Number one, that I see as the problem, and if we solved it, it probably would solve most of the other ones. And that is the attack on personal liberty. The people truly understood what personal liberty means, that you have self-ownership, that you have a natural God-given right to your life, therefore you have a right to your liberty, and we defend all life and all liberty regardless of our judgment about how people are using that liberty. Then we would have the natural sequence of saying, if that is the case, you have a natural right to keep the fruits of your labor. And all of it. Personal liberty, when it returns, once again, you'll be able to drink raw milk. Be able to make rope out of hemp. You will be able to feel secure in your houses, that the federal government will not be able to spy on you or bust into your house while they search you out. You will be allowed, without a government permit, to buy nutritional products when you please and what you please. No longer will the government assume they have the responsibility of protecting you against yourself. Nobody can do that. The emphasis emphasis will no longer be on economic and personal security. The government will take care of us, but it will be emphasized that the government is there to protect our liberty. You know, they can give us security, you know, whether it's economic, which always failed, or whether it's personal security. But you will become, if the government said we can provide you perfect security, isn't that what we do with animals that we breed to raise up and eat? I mean, this is what happens. They're secure. You put them in cages, you put them in fields, you fatten them up, you take care of them. They have all the food they want and the best nutrition until it's time to butcher. And this is saying, so what you want is liberty. You don't want this false sense of security that governments cannot give you. You can pick your nutritional products, and you can make your own choices, and you can drink raw milk. But you also, in a free society, you're allowed to make even more controversial choices. You might even decide to drink alcohol. And you know, there's a little bit of risk in alcohol, but in a truly free society, they tried that alcohol business one time. It didn't work very well. Too many politicians drank alcohol, so they finally repealed that. But yes, you would be allowed to make a decision on what kind of, what things you smoke and drink or eat, or whatever you do in your life. What would happen to the world if they had freedom of choice to imbibe drugs and all these dangerous things? Well, why don't you go back and look at early American history up to about 1938 to find out how many people were using these drugs in the 19th century. So once again, it's who gets to make these decisions. But the hardest thing for some people to accept, both liberals and conservatives, on this issue of tolerance of your freedom. Yes, we want you to have your freedom. We want you to make your own choices, and we're not going to tell you that you can't make bad choices. People say, well, doesn't that mean you endorse it? What if people drink too much or smoke too much and making their own choices? Well, there's one rule. They have to assume the consequences of their actions totally and completely. Pretense of taking care of ourselves that we have this drug war. Our government agencies have been known to be involved in drug trades. Government agents have been involved. The law enforcement agencies have been involved. And guess what? Guess which industry would like to see marijuana never legalized? That's the alcohol industry. How about the drug companies that sell all these tranquilizers? They don't want marijuana legalized either. So there's a lot of special interests that would like to keep drugs illegal. But the attack then is on our liberties. That is the important thing. We want our freedoms to make these decisions, even when the wrong decisions are made. Some people say, well, no, if it's legal, that means we endorse it. No, we don't. We don't endorse it. What about on religion? We're pretty good on religious values. Some people choose no religion. Some people pick different ones, 10, 20, 30, 50 different kind of religions. But we generally protect that and say that's your own choice. You can make your own choice. We are not judgmental about that. Pretty good that we're getting, we're getting sloppy on it to protect your intellectual freedom. Now that they want to regulate the internet and arrest people for saying things, this is where we're going to have to be be very careful, because when the state feels like they're under attack, probably the first freedom they get rid of is freedom of speech. Ideas, spreading ideas. That is why our ideological revolution has to pursue, and it has to pursue quickly before they take away our ability to communicate. But it's the ideas that changes the world, so that is why the First Amendment is so crucially important.